Live from Orlando, Florida, you're now listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Orlando Magic fans. Join us every week for a unique fan perspective on all of the latest Magic news and updates. The show starts now.
What's up, Magic fans? Welcome back to probably the best episode that we have so far recorded on the OZone Podcast. That is also brought to you by DraftKings and part of the Basketball Podcast Network. We are your hosts, Al, myself, Anthony. Today, we are joined by special guests, Orlando Magic HQ writer Kieran, as well as social media sensation, Jeff WeltGawd. What's up, gentlemen?
Oh my God, sensation.
Sensation.
He's a celebrity around there.
I know.
Yeah, he is.
So
well, I appreciate both of you guys having me on the pod. Excited to talk some Paolo Banchero, baby.
That's what I'm talking about. So we are a couple hours post the NBA draft. We're actually recording this right at midnight. So I definitely appreciate Kieran and Jeff joining us so late. But man, I want to jump right into it. There's definitely a lot of excitement. Well, there's a lot of excitement. 3 out of the 4. One individual is not as excited as we are, but I mean, just jumping right into it. Kieran, Allen, and myself, we were at the Amway. Jeff was at home watching on ESPN Live. But I mean, what are our initial reactions? Paolo Banchero, number 1, Orlando Magic.
All right, which one y'all want to go first?
Real quick, because not everyone was in the Amway Center. So can before we talk about our reactions, can you, since all 3 of you were there, can you speak a little bit about what you experienced or what you saw from the fans? Was it packed? Were people excited? Were people not excited? What happened?
So we were there last year, right? And you could blame it on COVID. You can blame it on different factors, but it was nowhere near as packed as it was this time around. Like today, the atmosphere, it felt as if we were at an audience of a game. Like how many people were there? It's really ridiculous, and so much so that the people around us knew nothing about the NBA draft. Like they knew absolutely nothing. They thought Jabari Smith Jr. was a guard. They didn't know what college. Like just hearing the conversations that were around. So that leads me to believe that there was just so much hype around this number 1 pick that it really brought in, all types of individuals, just wanting to be a part of the environment. What about you, Kieran? What do you think?
Oh, I'm just the vibe was it was great. There was just a buzz about the whole arena. Everything felt like kind of like we were back alive, like some life was breathed into the Magic crowd. Because like you said, Anthony, that was a better turnout of our crowd than some games. Like I've been to games where there was a worse turnout of Magic fans than there was compared to tonight. I remember when they had shut off the lights just to announce the pick, right before they announced the pick. The crowd went crazy, and it was probably one of the most like electric atmospheres of Amway I've seen probably in the last couple of years, just because this was the tide turning moment to kind of get us out of that whole tanking era that we were in, which really just put a huge dent in what the media thinks of our fan base. They just think that we're a bunch of there's barely any of us, and now like it feels like this kind of breathed life back into it. Like we're back on the map. I like to say that a lot, but it really felt like that. Like there was traffic just to get in the parking garage. It felt like, the city of Orlando's back. So that's my whole takeaway.
Real quick, all of you guys, what you're wearing right now, right? That's all lucky Magic gear because we got Paolo Banchero. So I need you to know that's your lucky Magic gear. Can you show us? I don't know if it's possible. Can you show us your Magic drip? Like what jerseys are you wearing?
Yeah, listen, if in order for me to show it to you, I would have to show you my Lucky Orlando Magic underwear, and I don't think that that's just something that we're able to share. Now, Jeff, I have to ask you because this needs to be brought up right before a few hours before the draft. It was posted in social media on Twitter, and I've obviously reposted into other social media. So around the complete social media world, that if Paolo Banchero was going to be selected, you were going to share your identity.
What are you talking about? I don't recall that. What was that?
That's a good play. That's a good play.
The backtracking.
I support the secrecy, so we'll let it.
No. You know what? You know what? Look, listen. I'm a man of my word. I said I am going to reveal to everyone who I am on this podcast. I just didn't say if when I reveal it, if it will be for the world or just for you guys. And I tell you what, I am going to reveal myself to you three on this podcast. You will know who I am at the end. I promise you.
There you go.
Snap.
I'll take
I like
that.
that.
I'll take
But we
that
have
for
to
sure.
we have to keep it secretly, right? We
Oh
gotta
yeah,
keep it
yeah.
under
Just for
wraps.
you guys. Just for you guys.
Okay.
If you guys make a $1,000 tier on your Patreon and someone pays for that, I'll tell them too. But outside of that, it's just you three.
Hey man, hey,
Okay.
we need to hit up one of those Paolo Banchero bets to see if they'll purchase one of those $1,000 Patreons. How about that?
They cashed out for sure. I'll tell you that.
They definitely did. I think
Wow.
Jeff Weltman made some money tonight for sure.
Now,
Some
now
cash considerations. Right.
in regards to the reaction, I'm going to definitely post it on social media tomorrow. But my wife was kind enough to record Al and I's reaction, and when you take a look at a reaction, they're completely bipolar. Like you have my reaction, you can tell that out of the two of us, somebody is extremely excited. You can also tell that the other person not so much. So for the listeners that are not on the Paolo train, that didn't believe that Paolo should be our pick, Al, how are you feeling afterwards? Now that you got some food in your system, now that you got to be able to kind of let everything kind of sink in, Paolo is the newest addition to the Orlando Magic. What are you thinking now as a Jabari supporter?
So listen, after some food in me, a drink, and then a shot before we all went home, it's sunk in now. It's real. So this is what happened. So it's not that I wasn't happy, and you guys will see the reaction. I was just shocked. Like one of those moments, you're like, wait, what did just happen? Is this really real?
You didn't cheer the pick?
I did. I clapped. You'll see the video. I clapped.
Okay,
I cheered.
okay.
But initially, it was one of those where I'm like, did this really just happen? And then it became, we're actually making a trade. Like really, I really thought that. Like we're gonna make this trade with Houston. We're gonna get Jabari. We're gonna trade down, get some assets in the process. But then that never happened. And I'm like, wait, I'm gonna wait another 10 minutes. And that never happened. And then Jeff spoke to the media, and I'm like, okay, cool. It's actually real now. So it took me about an hour, to be honest, to really understand what just happened. Like, hey, we did not draft Jabari. I've been saying it all along on Twitter. I'm okay with anyone. Chet, Jabari, Paulo. I'm cool with either one of those guys. It was just surreal that the one guy that we did not expect, based on all the predictions, based on all the Vegas odds, nobody expected Paulo until this morning to be drafted by the Magic. And next thing you know, now we start hearing rumors. So, hey, the Magic met with him late last night. They met with him today. And then it became more and more real. Like, hey, this could actually happen. So again, I'm excited. I can't wait to see him play in Summer League. We were just talking about that before we started recording. But again, I do think, though, I will say this. Jabari's reaction when we did not pick him, go back and watch that. That was a little rough to watch.
Knife in the heart. Like he looked like a completely just destroyed inside. Like he was devastated. You could tell he was taken aback because he said it many times that he would love to be a part of the team, love to be with Orlando. And I was really warming up to the idea of welcoming a guy who really wants to be a part of a team this bad, especially our team, like a small market team. But you can tell that lit a fire in him. So I'm like I said, I was telling you guys this before. When we play Houston, I'm watching out. I'm gonna be careful because he's gonna light us up.
I mean, he's definitely going to be upset because how much did we hear out of the three of them? He was the one that was banging his chest saying that he wanted to be the number one pick. These are the reasons why. And then he was also saying that I've only worked out for two teams. There's no way that I'm falling after the two. And then he slid all the way down to three. And I think the initial reaction, like for me, Paolo was my guy for really, like he was the one that I wanted. And even when we drafted him, I wasn't able to fully celebrate just yet. Just because we didn't know if there was a trade coming. We didn't know if there was going to be a swap for, Houston at 3 for Jabari Smith. So I really didn't get the sense of, the comfortability of saying, okay, this is really, really happening. Mm-hmm. But madness really happened this morning when we started hearing that, the odds in Vegas is Paolo really does have a chance. And then we started hearing more and more of that. Jeff, how are you feeling? Are you feeling like this morning when you started hearing that Paolo might be a real possibility? Did you really think that was going to go down the way that it did?
So before I answer that, I think it's like, can I talk a little bit about my Magic fandom? Because that will maybe make more sense with how I feel about everything.
Let's hear it.
Do it.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, I didn't become a Magic fan until around right after the finals. Like right after the finals, that's when I started becoming a fan. I was always a Vince Carter guy. So I became like a hardcore fan the day we traded for Vince Carter, right? And I remember that day so vividly because that same day Michael Jackson died. Shout out to the GOAT. So obviously, that season it ended in disappointment, and pretty much my Magic fandom for like the next 12 years has been a disappointment if you kind of think about it, because all I know is the rebuild, right? The rebuild's been filled with disappointment. Since Dwight left, we went to the playoffs twice and we won only, 2 playoff wins, right? And I don't mean series. I just mean like literally single games, right? Think about all the drafts we've been in. We were always like a pick or 2 away from the guy we really wanted, right? Or we weren't a pick or 2 away, but the guy who's also good in the draft was like 8 or 9 picks later. Then think about like all the guys we've lost in the rebuild, right? We lost Depot, we lost Harris, Vooch. We had a player who never scored less than a 50 in a dunk contest, and he didn't win it twice. I mean, so when you think about it,
Rough.
It's been rough, right? It's been really rough. Sprinkle in some injuries to key guys, and it's not been a good time. So I'm not used to having nice things. So like if you asked me before the lottery, what's like the pinnacle for you of, your whole time being a Magic fan? It's kind of sad to say, but it's either the day we traded for Fultz, like last second at the trade deadline, we got Markelle Fultz, or DJ Augustin hitting that, 3-point shot to win the first game in the playoffs. I mean, that's
True.
I don't know about you guys,
moment.
but yeah, that was a huge Magic moment. That was the Magic moment. I can't think of anything else besides those 2 days, besides the lottery. And then what happens? We win the lottery. And before the lottery, like, I knew I wanted Paolo Banchero. I went back to my tweets. March 29th was the first tweet where I saw where I'm tweeting about Paolo, and that's the guy I want. And guess what? From the day we won, I'm being told Jabari Smith Jr. is the guy. Not only am I being told Jabari Smith Jr. is the guy, they're not even saying Paolo has a chance. Like, he's not even up for debate for number 2. It was Chet Holmgren. So now I'm like, WTF. This is the 1 year we win, but I don't get the guy I want. How is this freaking possible? And in my mind, I'm like, Paolo Banchero, he's the best. He's just the best at basketball in this draft class. How is everyone not seeing this? How do I keep seeing stuff about Jabari and Chet? Now, don't get me wrong. If you look at my Twitter, I like to have fun. My account's all about having fun. So you'll see me, I'll poke fun at Jabari one day, and I'm like, yeah, Jabari's the best player. And, I did like Chet, but my love for Chet was more like, okay, well, if I can't have Jabari, Chet's like the next best thing. If I can't have Paolo, Chet's the next best thing. So then, so fast forward some, we're going through, the draft process. Everything is indicating Jabari. We're going to get Jabari. But then, little few things started happening within the last week. What's going on here? Like, I go on Paolo's IG. He's only following Magic players. He's not following a single OKC player. He's not following a single Rockets player. Thought that was a little suspicious. Last night, I couldn't go to sleep. I find that the Wagner brothers are on some random podcast. And the 2 guys that are doing the interview with them, they're trying to get them to say, hey, who do you think the Magic are going to draft? And if you look at Mo Wagner's face, he's like laughing because he can't really say anything. So what they do instead is they say, okay, we'll tell you what we think. And they say, we think it's Jabari Smith. And then they ranked Paolo 3rd. And then if you look at Mo Wagner's reaction, that said everything right there to me. I'm like, he knows something is up, because he looked like he really wanted to say, you guys have no idea what y'all talking about. Jabari is not him. So I'm starting to feel a little excited. And I wake up this morning, I look in my DMs, I see some guy with a check mark say, hey, I know you're a big Paolo guy. I just want you to know somebody last night put a big, large sum of money on Paolo Banchero. And I'm like, oh, this is it. It is happening. And then like 2 seconds later, Woj crushes my dreams again, because he pretty much tweets, no, Jabari's still the guy. You guys don't know what you're talking about. So, again, it's just like, how is this going to happen to me again? We missed out on Luka. We missed out on Trey, right? There's all these guys that we miss out on, and I'm going to do it again, even though we have the number 1 pick. So today I was in Discord, but I left with the Reddit guys for a little bit because I promised my wife, because she saw how excited I was when we won the lottery. She wanted to see my reaction, to see what would happen. And she already knows this is the guy I really want. We're not going to get him. So this is like the second best option, Chet. I'll be okay with Jabari, but if I can't have him, I want Chet. And when they say Paolo Banchero, like when I heard his name, I don't know why I yelled this, but I yelled Taco Tuesday for no freaking reason. I was I was screaming, I was hollering. I
I'm
couldn't
with you.
believe this was real life. I mean, it was just amazing. And my next thought was, wow, Jeff Weltman, masterclass job right there. He fooled the whole freaking world. All of us thought that Paolo had zero chance to go number one, right? All this stuff about he didn't want to work out with us, he didn't meet with us, he didn't think he don't want to be in Orlando, right? They did the draft day interview with Jabari. I mean, man, well played, bravo. That's why you are the man. That's why, if you look at me, I don't stand an NBA player. I stand the president of basketball operations.
That's what I'm talking about. It's great because I've never seen Waj seem so flustered before. Like he always seems to be extremely confident in what he does, what he says, everything's with intention. But the way that you started off the ESPN segment was talking about how well that the Magic front office had this stealth operation that they kept everything extremely close to the chest. They literally had no idea until moments before the draft, where we started seeing that there was some steam speeding up for Paolo. And the fact that that's the way that it ended, literally nobody saw it coming. If it wasn't for these Vegas odds that I don't know if maybe I just didn't pay attention to it as much because we never had the first pick, but I can't remember an NBA draft where Vegas was such a big topic the way that it was this time around.
Oh yeah.
And I think that this is probably, and Grant is because we had the number one pick and it's our team, but this is probably one of the most stressful, the most exciting, the most in anticipation, anxiety. Like today at work, completely worthless. Like there was no I am so sorry to anyone that had to work with me today because I was completely worthless because of the amount of focus I had, because literally it seemed like every single minute if my eyes went off the phone for a moment, something happened and I missed it. But all in all, I couldn't think of a better outcome. The way that everything ended, that I wish that there was some type of film, some type of interviews, documentary, anything, because the way that everything panned out would make so much money, and just in regards to entertainment and publicity and whatever the case may be. But Weltman was definitely the man. And if anyone thinks that this man does not deserve what he has or the extensions, you're out of your mind, because the way that he finessed really NBA with the information,
everyone
was like you said, Jeff, masterclass.
Man, he finessed Woj. I mean, who does that?
Nobody.
That's hard to do.
Nobody. Nobody.
I find it like you said, it's just like a bunch of like collective moments that are all just jumbled together. It was the most controversial draft I've ever put this much focus into, and it was like a giant soap opera around the league. Like everything just coming in at once. So many components happening. So many components contributing to what people think is going to happen, and it's like I like to think of it like the T-Mac scoring 13 points in 33 seconds. Like everything was looking like, oh, they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it. Oh, they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it, and they do it. Just right at the last second. You have these very final moments. Literally, the last 5 minutes that I'm checking my phone. I'm at the draft party. I'm just watching, and I'm like, there's no way they actually go for Paolo. And then he comes out and he says Paolo's name. It was an insane twist of events. Like just the most the most composed I've been, but also the most out of control I've been. Like I tried my best to keep my cool, and then when they said that name, I was jumping out of my seat. I was just going crazy. I was trying to get the crowd riled up. Like there was just so much surrounding that pick. It was a really, really great night. A really great night.
Yeah, the thing that never made sense to me about all this was the day we won the lottery. It's like Jeff Weltman. I felt like everyone that was in the room must have saw him go a fist pump, and then he yelled out, "Hey, just so you all know, I think Jabari Smith Jr. is the best player in the draft." That never made sense to me, because like, how did they know from that day it was Jabari Smith Jr.? And one thing I was telling a lot of fans was this: they probably already knew it was Paolo the moment they won. They've been scouting these kids since high school. They spent millions of dollars just strictly on scouting talent, especially the Magic. I mean, we knew we were going to be in the draft for a while, right? So like they already knew. So when I saw Jabari here and then I saw Chet was here, to me, that was more like, okay, look, I think Paolo's a guy. Let me see if you can convince me otherwise. Like that's how I took those two things. And the fact that we didn't see Paolo, that didn't necessarily deter me from thinking we wouldn't pick him, because again, I already knew they probably already had the idea. Like John Hammond even said, I think like the day after we won the lottery, if I had to make a pick, like I could. I mean, we wouldn't do that, but we probably could do it if we had to. So
I think one of the things that really pissed me off about this whole the last 30 days is that we're looking at all these mock drafts and everyone is saying, Jabari Smith to Orlando, and literally everyone is saying that. We're looking at the Ringer, the Athletic, ESPN, everyone is saying Jabari Smith. But then we take a look at everyone's big board and it's Paolo.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone is legit saying on paper Jabari Smith is a perfect fit for the Orlando Magic. Where everyone's completely ignoring the fact that Chet is the king of all long boys, right? And a player that's Paolo is exactly, in my opinion, what we need, because what we need is an offensive player that's a go-to guy that you say, hey, go get me a bucket, and he says, hey, here you go. And finally, we can honestly sit here and say that we have that. And if we're looking at it now, we ask ourselves, what's to come? What's to come is the summer league. What's to come is the first summer league. We're gonna take a look at Paolo going against Houston Rocket, Jabari Smith Jr., who wasn't too happy that we didn't select him. But moving forward, how are you guys looking at how the fit would look like in the starting lineup? We're already looking at the Jonathan Isaac. He's going to be healthy. Okay, so what are we going to do with Paolo and Jonathan Isaac and Franz Wagner? So, Kieran, what are you thinking there?
I mean, the thing with Ji, we know he's coming off of another surgery, so I don't think he starts this season. I think you have your clear front court starters. I don't really think it's much of a debate. You got Franz, Paolo, and Wendell. But I think the fit is just so seamless. Like you have all these talented guys on that one roster in Markelle, Suggs, Franz, and Wendell. But with all due respect to all of those guys, they're not a number one option that you build around. And I think Franz is definitely close to that, but you don't have the scoring arsenal to build a team around him, to make him a number one scoring option, to make him a primary option in the playoffs specifically, where we see like you need a score first wing, a score first forward to win in this league. Like it's stamped in. If you've seen the last, like, I don't know what it is, like 12, 15 finals MVPs, they're all forwards who are the alphas of their team. Like, obviously except for Curry. But to that fact, like you have so many talented guys, but I've heard this so many times, like the Magic, they are loaded with almost too much talent that there's too many mouths to feed. You have to focus and hone in on one. And when you hone in on one, you have to pick the guy who is going to bring everything to the table, who has all those talents. And I feel like Paolo is the only guy I can think of that has all those talents, that you can bring him into the roster, you give him the keys to the franchise, and you say, go and run with it. This is your team. You're the number one pick. You're going to be our number one scoring option. You're going to bring publicity to Orlando. You're going to make us the Orlando Magic that has excited the world once again. And I just feel like we've always needed that. And I would have loved the Jabari fit. I would have think that we would have loved his shooting. We definitely would have needed it. And the defense definitely would add to our defensive identity. And the Chet fit, I was originally very high on the Chet fit, but now that I'm thinking back on it, it's like you're going to have another guy who's going to struggle to score and put the ball in the bucket right off the bat. It's like I might say, 6-7 years down the line, we might look at it and be like, okay, well, Chet definitely did have the superstar potential. He had the upside. But I feel like, now you want to take Orlando out of the pit, and you want us to be back in the running, back and being talked about. You want us to have that sort of, Cleveland Cavaliers type rise like what they had this year, or something like what Atlanta did in 2021 with the that random Eastern Conference Finals appearance. You want something like that out of this team. You need something to breathe some life into them, because they were going downhill. But now we're looking a lot brighter. And I like the fit for Paolo just because he's your guy. You market him, you go crazy with him. You have your Tatum, your Ja, the guy that gets you on ESPN Sports Center. And I'm all for that. All for that.
Yeah, Paolo was looked at as the guy that would most likely win Rookie of the Year. You looked at a player like Jabari and Chet, and you could convince yourself that, hey, they may take a couple extra years for them to be able to get there, to where Paolo may be a little more immediate. So, Jeff, what do you think here? What are your expectations now that we've decided our direction? We've decided Paolo with someone that would be able to help this team immediately. And this is something that, Jeff Wellman kind of touched on. What are your expectations for Paolo? What are you expecting? Do you see him being the leading scorer? Do you see him kind of pushing us into the play-in or into the playoff bounds? What are your thoughts there?
I do. But just, real quick to answer that, but also kind of touch on what you guys were just talking about. I've never been a guy that thinks when you have the number one pick, you need to pick the player that's the best fit on the team. To me, when you have the number one pick, you pick the best player, and then afterwards you say who on the team complements this player.
Especially when you have the second worst record in the NBA.
Hell yeah, exactly. We're not a playoff team. Everyone says, oh, yeah, if we're healthy, we're a playoff team. Look, you're not a playoff team until you're a playoff team. You have to make the freaking playoffs. So until you can do that, you can't say you're a playoff team. So to me, next year, do I expect them to go play in or playoff? That'd be great. But to me, next year is like tryout year. Which one of you guys on the team are going to best fit with Paolo? Because he's the direction we're moving with. He's the number one pick. And then we're going to make the team based on the lineups that work best with Paolo Banchero. Because Kieran, I think you were talking about it. We have a lot of guys on the team that are like maybes. Like, you need a top 20 guy to make it to the finals, right? Think when Miami went, Jimmy Butler, top 20 guy. Think when the Suns went, right? Devin Booker, top 20 guys. Usually those top 20 guys, they have like that Mamba mentality, that F you, I'm the best player on the court, and I know I'm the superstar here, right? And that's the one thing I think Franz is missing a little bit. I'm not to say that he has the skill set. I don't know if he has that mindset, although I will say, after listening to him speak on the podcast yesterday, he talked about his upbringing in Europe. And in Europe, that type of behavior is not acceptable. Like I'm going to, talk shit and say I'm the best. Like they don't do that over there. So that might be a reason why he appears more reserved. That might not be who he is. But to me, Paolo is that guy who's that top 20 player that can elevate us to, a team that can be in the playoffs. And, I made comparisons before, if you follow my Twitter, that Paolo reminds me a little bit of Jason Tatum. And if I'm looking at our roster, I'm kind of seeing a little bit comparables to us and the Celtics, right? Look at Wendell Carter Jr. That's Al Horford right there, right? I said Paolo Tatum. If you look at Franz, he's got a little bit of Jaylen Brown to him, except this guy can play make. This guy can dribble, right? So he's got a skill set that kind of mirrors him a little bit. Jalen Suggs can kind of be like our Marcus Smart. So I think we're building something here. It just is, at the end of the day, I think next year is more like, Magic fans probably don't want to hear this, but, I don't necessarily think we're a playoff team next year. Next year is going to be like the final testing year. Okay, which lineups work best? Let's see what it looks like with J.I. back. Let's see what it looks like with Fultz back. I don't know what type of free agents we're going to get, but what does this all look like? Because Paolo Banchero is that bucket getter. And, and even just saying that, I think is a discredit to Paolo. He's an excellent facilitator. He's an excellent playmaker. I say Tatum, but he kind of actually reminds me of LeBron with the way he's able to make passes and just make the right plays. He's built like LeBron, So I really do feel like next year is more about which pieces best fit with Paolo. And then, at some point, we're going to have to package some of the guys because we have a lot of, assets. We might have to cash in. It's, but I still think we need one more year before we do that.
Yep. Now when we take a look at jumping into the second round, because the Orlando Magic did make a pick there. We ended up trading one of the second round picks to the Los Angeles Lakers, our 35th, and then just jumping into our 32nd pick. Kieran, what did you think there? You're a draft expert, but when it comes to that second pick, Magic decided to do something crazy, which is keeping their pick. So what are your thoughts there? What did you like about that pick?
I liked it. Initially, I was a little shocked. I thought they were going to go Jaden Hardy. He was left on the board, and me and Al were clamoring for that. But I like Caleb Houston. I like the Caleb Houston pick. I knew a little bit about him. I'm not gonna claim to say that I was very heavily educated on Caleb Houston's game, but I did look at a couple articles, at a couple clips, and he seems like the type of guy that you would want to bury on your third string team. Hopefully he can earn some minutes, maybe send him to Lakeland for a little bit. But he's a sizable wing. He can play around 2 to 4. He's stretchable, and he's one of those valuable glue guys. I mean, obviously he played for Michigan under the same system of Franz, and we've seen what they can do with versatile wings. So I think that pick is a really good pick, especially with what was left on the board. You did have Jaden Hardy. You could have gotten that guy who's sort of like a little microwave scorer. But I really like the Caleb Houston pick. I think he'd be a decent fit for our team of just stretchable wings, just very versatile, positionless. It'll be a nice experiment. Hopefully they'll find a way to get him some minutes. I'm hoping to see something out of him, because obviously we all know how the reputation is for the Magic and their second round picks. Like, we have not touched one since like Melvin Frazier and Wes Iwundu. So clearly the fact that they kept it at all in the first place is telling that they like this dude, and they've done their due diligence studying him, and I'm really excited. I hope he'll be a contributor someday.
And some of the things that I saw quickly about him, I read that he was originally in the beginning of the season supposed to be a first round pick. And he's a shooter. He's a streaky shooter. He's still going to need some time to develop, but someone that was definitely sought out to be to go a lot higher. So I'm interested to see him and definitely Paolo in that summer league. And just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, man, what are your final thoughts, Al?
Man, final thoughts for me, it's got to be with the front office, right? So, I mean, what else can you say? That this dude's shocked all of us. They played the NBA. They played Woj, for God's sakes. Amazing job doing what they do best, keeping information inside, not leaking anything. And at the end of the night, I really believe we're one of those teams that won the draft tonight. I mean, not only again with Paolo, but I do believe our second round pick was also a great pickup. Kid can shoot, play defense. Again, comes from Michigan, so he's going to come right into Franz, someone that he can kind of look up to as he gets used to our team here in Orlando. But I mean, that's my takeaway, just how much of an amazing job our front office did tonight and throughout this entire process, fooling the entire league. Props to them. And I'm just excited for next week now. We have free agency starting exactly in 1 week. How much are they keeping already inside into what they're doing in free agency? So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, for sure. On that note, Kieran, I appreciate you so much for joining us. Follow him on KP20 Magic. And Jeff, man, where's it that we can find you for those that aren't already following you?
I mean, honestly, you just Magic Man 816. I think it's both that for Instagram and for Twitter. And real quick, I just want to say one final word for Magic fans, because I'm sure some people right now are really upset we didn't get Chet Holmgren, are really upset we didn't get, Jabari Smith Jr. I just want to say, just think back to before lottery day. What type of pick did you think you were getting? I bet you thought we were getting the 4th, the 5th, or the 6th pick. If I had a time machine and I can go back to that day and I would tell you, listen, would you rather have the 5th pick or any one of Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith Jr., or Paolo Banchero? Which would you prefer? Every single one of us would say, just give me any one of those 3 guys, and I'm happy. We're set, right? It's just because we won the first pick, we got greedy, and then we started, drawing the line with this is my guy. But just go back to that day. You would have been happy with any one of those 3 guys. So sleep it off tonight. Wake up tomorrow. Get excited, because Paolo Banchero is the future of the Orlando Magic, and we all need to get behind this guy.
That is fact. Sir. That is fact. Do not buy his jersey just yet, because they are selling his jersey wearing Aaron Gordon's old number. So I'd wait on it until it becomes official. But on that note, Team Banchero, it's a wrap. We'll catch you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Magic fans. For all the latest Orlando Magic news and updates, follow us on Twitter at the OZone Pod and on Instagram at Orlando Magic HQ. Remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on all your favorite podcast listening platforms.